Crawford has already been
You,
talking about moving to 154. He doesn't seem interested. Obviously, he says one thing, and history has shown something completely different, right? He had, like I said, he hasn't fought any of the champions. Um,
yeah,
he says he wants to smoke with Spence, but he's fighting Amir Khan and all these random Eastern European guys. So I don't think it happens, man. I don't think it happens. I think it should have happened by now. I don't think we'll get the best version of Crawford. Not sure if we'll get the best version of Errol Spence. You know, hopefully he stays injury free and accident free and all that. But um,
yeah.
I don't think it happens. If it does, I think maybe end of next year.
Right now, at this point, how would you break down the purse split? What is the purse split that, in your opinion, Terrence Crawford should accept and not price himself out to make this fight?
Well, he's asking, I think, for 50-50, or I don't know what he's asking for, but
Yeah,
he clearly doesn't deserve that. He sold like 40,000 against Amir Khan, who's a pretty popular, British fighter. I
yeah,
would say 60-40 Spence, and that's being very generous, in my opinion, simply because um, Crawford is not a ticket seller. He's not a guy who's going to sell pay-per-views. At least Spence has, his thing going on in Texas, which is a much bigger state, a stage than Omaha, Nebraska. Where Crawford chose to fight most of his fights,
yeah,
or most of his, fights in his prime, at least. I
yeah,
just think that Bob Arum did a great job promoting him. He made people believe that he was a top pound for pound fighter in the world, where when he was fighting subpar competition, in my opinion, at least.
yeah,
Um, and now he's suing Bob Arum, which is another story. But I think Errol Spence can easily ask for 60%, and I think Crawford should be
yeah,
happy with that because there's one big fish in this pond, and and it's the guy who's been fighting all the champions.
yeah. See, I agree with you with Errol Spence getting this win, with him having 3 out of the 4 major belts, a bigger draw, seemingly selling more tickets. I agree with you. Again, if I'm trying to make this fight, I'm not gonna try to like bruise anybody's egos, man. I would try to negotiate a 50-40 and the winner takes the 10. I would say that. Or 55, 45, or yeah. Let the winner pick up the piece of the pie, whatever's left, just so you don't bruise any egos. But I definitely do agree that Errol Spence deserves that 60-40 or that 55-45. But I mean, if you want to make this fight happen, you kind of have to work with these guys' egos, man, because they're both champions. They both feel like they're the consensus number one at welterweight. At this point, if I want to make the fight for the fans, I'm gonna try to beat each person's terms. And hey, man, the last piece of the pie, let the winner collect it.
Yeah, and Javier says that would be an issue that could possibly prevent the fight. Crawford would think he's the A side. Um, yeah, I think Crawford, obviously he should think very highly of himself. I think he's a very good fighter, but business wise, no way he's the A side. Uh, like I said, he hasn't showed anything to prove that he's the A side against a guy like Errol Spence.
Yeah.
But I went ahead and wrote a poll on the chat if y'all want to vote. If it indeed happens, who would you have, Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford? Uh, our guy Clyde from Comics Vet says should be 60-40 for Spence. Um, and I think that's what he's been saying, but a lot of Crawford fans has been, saying that that's disrespectful. But I 100% agree with that. 60-40, I think that's more than fair. Um,
Yeah.
Especially for a guy who has 3 belts and the other guy has 1. Um, which I think in other circumstances, maybe it wouldn't mean that much of a big deal. But I think in this case, when you have one guy who's had pretty big fights, the case of Errol Spence, um, Mikey Garcia, probably his biggest fight, business wise, right?
Mhm.
I can't remember how many pay per views that sold, but On paper, that's his biggest fight. He had the Danny fight, he had the Porter fight, he had the Kell Brook fight. Um,
Yeah.
and for Crawford, I mean, what can you say? What's his biggest fight? Sean Porter getting ready to retire? Gamboa,
It's
who
been,
was
it's
a
been,
122 pounder? I don't know.
yeah. I want to say his biggest fight is Porter, but yeah, he was already looking out
You
into the
can't say
horizon.
Khan because that sold like 40,000 pay per views. I mean, his track record isn't the best when it comes to selling tickets and selling pay per views. So um, I don't know. I don't know if this fight happens, man. But not to get away from the topic of Spence against Ugas. Spence, I'm more and more impressed every single time. Um, Even after all the incidents, he still comes back in great shape. He doesn't look rusty. Maybe got stunned a couple of times there against Ugas, but um, I mean, I think he still looked like Spence. So I think that's pretty
Yeah,
impressive.
yeah. No. Something that we were gonna see in this fight is I know he said that he's gonna be the better version of himself than the one that fought Danny, than the one that fought some of the last couple of fights he's been in. And that's something I was looking forward to seeing. And honestly, that's something I saw. I saw his mental grit. I saw how he dug deep. We've heard Ryan said, "I want the knockout," and we saw Ryan try to get the knockout. Spence in that same mode, trying to get the knockout, a much better finisher. Obviously, had to go to that TKO route, but he stopped him. He stopped Ugas. Like we mentioned earlier, a fighter that's never been stopped before. So this just shows how hungry, how motivated, how physically fit he was for this fight. And again, like it's most people don't come back from accidents like that, let alone come back to a professional sport and still be at the top. So it's a testament on how disciplined, professional, and still hungry he is. So I cannot. I know, Gio. I know you said this fight is not going to get made, and we've seen it from previous fights that big fights get shelled to the end. But I feel like this one's going to get made either this year or next year. We just have to leave those egos at home.
Yeah, and I 1,000% agree with Clyde. Even though a lot of people in the boxing world disagree, a lot of people just agree with whatever ESPN says. But Clyde says, "Am I the only one who sees Crawford as overrated? He's been manufactured by Top Rank and ESPN. I don't see him as a top five. Same.
Wow. Okay.
I don't think I've ever seen Crawford as a top five pound for pound fighter.
Okay.
He just hasn't faced the opposition. I do think he's a very good fighter.
Okay.
We just haven't seen it, in my opinion. You can knock
Let me
out
ask. Let
Khan
me
all
ask.
you want, but I think any top welterweight would do that.
Let me ask this, Gio. Where do you rate Errol Spence's win over Ugas in his top five? Like, is that his best? Is there another one before it? Like, where do you rate this win for Errol Spence?
For Errol Spence, I think his best win was possibly Sean Porter. I think that was a very close fight.
Yeah.